Welcome to Breakthrough Mode, the podcast where we intentionally get into the driver's seat of our lives, shift out of monotony and mediocrity, and step on the gas towards becoming the person we were always meant to become. Hello, and welcome to Wednesday in the Wild on the Breakthrough Mode podcast. I'm your host, Megan Bauer. Thank you so much for joining me and pushing play on today's episode. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that we are out in the actual wild today. Right now, Jake, the girls, and I are camping in Timpanogos. And so this podcast is being recorded from the campground next to ours, simply because my children are loud and, and that's what we're doing. So we have been here in Timpanogos. This is our second day, but we've done 2 3.5-mile hikes. We are all sweaty. We are all very dirty. We are all sore and tired. And it's been a lot of fun. So this week we have been talking about and focusing on finding ourselves. So as I was thinking about this episode and thinking about how to go about finding yourself, or really how I have gone about finding myself, it has really come back to kind of the last 2 weeks of our themes where it was like ignoring yourself and saying yes to yourself. Because more often, finding myself has been about continually giving myself permission to explore, to try things, to do the things that call to my heart, do the things that interest me, or follow the paths that interest me. And I have learned so much about myself by all of those yeses to myself, all of the self permission to, I guess, not just follow my heart and follow my interests and follow my curiosity, but also to spend the time, the energy, and the resources on those pursuits, right? So I tell people I've lived a lot of lives. I have been a quilter. I have been a gallery artist. I have trained as a surface pattern designer. I know Illustrator super well, and it's one of my loves. I absolutely love Illustrator and working in Illustrator. I've worked as a freelance graphic designer and, of course, now podcaster and coach. And every step of the way, that was me giving myself permission to pursue those paths, to learn those skills, to learn more about myself, more about what it is I like to do, how I like to spend my time, where I like to spend my energy. And the only way that you can really find that out is by trying things and then allowing yourself to pivot and redirect and to try something else. Because I know that at least for me, all of those paths were fulfilling and all of them were totally for me until it was time for me to move on to something else. So I wouldn't ever say that any of them were a mistake. I would totally say that they were all a part of my journey and I learned something both about myself and I also built myself up as I pursued those different things. And it's absolutely okay that they weren't maybe the thing that stuck forever. And as I think about my journey sometimes and thinking about giving myself the permission to follow all of those different avenues, I always think about how personal development has been such a constant thread throughout all of those. I have always sought to be a better version of myself. I have always sought to become better. I've always sought to improve and develop who I am. And so when it came to the podcast, that felt so natural because as I did all of these other things, personal development was a passion in the background that I kept pursuing. And honestly, like, I couldn't have started this podcast straight out of college because straight out of college, I didn't even know personal development was a thing. Honestly, I didn't. It took me being in some really dark mental and emotional places to even find personal development and then to continue to consume it and continue to try things and experiment with things. So as you go about thinking about your own journey of finding yourself, which I want you to give yourself credit. You do. You have done. As you have said yes to yourself in various ways, you learn more about yourself. You learn about what you like, how you like to spend your energy. You learn the things that you like to spend your attention on. You learn the ways that you like to contribute to others. You learn the things that light you up. You learn the things that don't. You learn so much about yourself and how you are built. And we tend to think that anybody in a certain situation or anybody who's learned a certain skill would like the things that you like or dislike the things that you dislike or would have a natural inclination towards the things that you're naturally inclined towards. But that's simply not true because we are all built differently. We all have different interests. We all have different things that light us up and spark joy. And so the things that you are uniquely meant to do, your unique calling and purpose on this earth is always going to feel like, well, doesn't everybody love that? Wouldn't everybody do that? And that's just not true. And the only way to figure out what that is for you is to try things, is to experiment, is to put yourself in these situations where you can find out if you do like it or if you don't like it. That's truly the only way. And finding yourself is kind of a tricky topic because I think that we are all born knowing ourselves. We are all born with our own likes and dislikes and inclinations and things like that. And it can be trained out of us. It can all be conditioned out of us, and none of it is necessarily meant to be a bad thing because as I've taught my own kids, I could be trying to guide them to not follow their impulses for safety reasons, right? And telling them, "Kate, you can't run in the road," or "You can't just do this or do that," or "There's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it." And a lot of it's to keep them safe or to help them be functioning future adults in society. I would say that most conditioning isn't ill intended, but as we receive those messages to temper ourselves, we tend to take it a little bit too far where we have some unlearning to do as adults. So, to say that succinctly, the conditioning that happens as we are kids, I would say that it wasn't necessarily ill intended. And when we learned those lessons, we might have put a broader rule on it than it necessarily needed. And now we have a bit of unlearning to do as we give ourselves permission to pursue different paths, to follow our heart, to follow our interests, and to kind of rediscover who we are. So that's really tricky. It's really tricky. And it's tricky as an adult as I try to guide these souls and I try to give them every opportunity that I can. And I try to help them follow their interests and follow their passions and help them learn how to function in a community, in a society with other people so that they can work with people instead of being too self-centered or too bossy or whatever, right? And we don't use the word bossy at my house. We say that the girls have leadership skills. And so it's really about channeling those leadership skills, right? It's about channeling it and learning the wisdom that goes along with those things. So I think, like, as parents, we try to contain the kids a bit until they learn the wisdom of safe boundaries, both physically safe and, societally safe and respecting others and all of that, right? So it's kind of tricky. But as adults, I think it starts with giving yourself permission that what you are interested in trying, doing, pursuing, spending time on, you get to give yourself permission to do those things, to follow that, to see where it leads, to see what you learn about yourself, what you like to do, how you like to spend your time and your energy and your attention, and how it is you like to contribute to the world around you. At least for me, it has always started there. So on Friday, I will have some more tips and ideas for you to play with as you take this topic to heart and really focus on getting back to yourself, getting back to who you are. And then next week, we will, of course, follow up with that second half of Dolly's quote and do it on purpose. Thank you so much for joining me here today in Timpanogos up in the Uinta National Forest. It's beautiful up here. It's been absolutely perfect weather. We've totally loved our visit. Um, and it will be good to go back home and take a nice shower. I totally love you. Bye for now.